What's up everybody? Welcome to another video. Hope you're doing well. Oh, you want to say hello to the people as well? Come. Hi guys, this is Mika. Nice to meet you. I'm gonna go now. Alright, so today we're talking about CO2. Now those of you who have been following me for quite a while now, you know that I'm actually a big fan of the DIY CO2 systems. The simple plastic bottles that you fill with sugar, some yeast and some water that produces CO2. So I like these systems because they're very simple to make. I mean, if you have an empty soda bottle at home and some sugar and some yeast, you can already make yourself a CO2 system. So they're very cheap as well, and actually they're quite effective. But they do have a lot of downsides, like you can't regulate the CO2, you can't turn the CO2 off, and sometimes it smells a little bit as well, it's a bit stinky. So there are a lot of downsides to this system. Okay, so you can make CO2 at home with sugar and yeast. That's one method. You can also do exactly the same thing with citric acid and baking soda. That's a method that I've personally never tried before, but that's about to change because this just arrived today. This is a CO2 reactor set from Colombo. It's a fairly new product from them. And if you never heard of Colombo, they are basically a company that produces products for the aquarium hobby, both marine and freshwater, as well as pond actually. I'll leave a link to the Colombo website in the description down below. Definitely check that out. So the people at Colombo were very nice and they sent me this CO2 reactor kit for free to test it out and to show it to you guys. So I'm very curious to try it. Colombo, if you're watching, thanks a lot, I really appreciate it. Okay, so before we unbox this thing, let's just quickly go over what it is and what it does. I already did a little bit of research, so I think I have a pretty good idea of what it is. So they call this a CO2 reactor. So basically we're going to be making our own CO2 at home. We're going to fill this stainless steel canister with dry ingredients, citric acid and baking soda. Then we're going to add water, and that's going to start forming a sort of reaction that's going to produce a lot of CO2. Once we close the canister with the regulator, a lot of pressure is going to start building up inside the canister. I think around 20 bars, something like that. So a lot of pressure. Once we have the right amount of pressure, we can open the regulator and just start injecting CO2 in our aquarium. The regulator also has a solenoid valve, so we're also able to shut off the CO2 at night when we don't need it. So if you look at it like that, this seems like to be the fancy version of our DIY CO2 system. So I'm really curious to start trying this out. Alright, so let's just open it up, see what we have inside. UK CO2 reactor manual, we'll read it in a little bit. First off, let's take out the bottle. Alright, so this is the canister that's going to be filled with our dry ingredients and water. I think this is 2.3 liters, something like that. A little over 2 liters. Let's take out the regulator. Okay, so here we have the regulator. It says here optimal pressure is 20 kilograms per square meter. I think that's very similar to just bars. Needle valve here. Here on top is going to be our bubble counter. And I think this is to relieve some extra pressure. We have too much pressure. Seal to be removed later. Okay, so this is the bubble counter, and next to it we have the solenoid valve. So with this we are able to shut off the CO2 at night and open the CO2 in the morning. And I'm surprised how small this thing actually is. If I look at other solenoids, they're usually like this size. So this is very small. It's nice to see something so small. Bubble counter, later on we'll fill it with some water so we can see the tiny bubbles. So I think this just goes on top like so, and now it's stuck, can't take it out anymore. Alright, so that's that. What else we have? We have the power plug for the solenoid. Small cable that will plug into the solenoid. so. And then there's a small screwdriver. I don't know what this is for though. We'll probably figure out when we read the manual. Okay, what we have here, oh, we have a small diffuser, CO2 diffuser. I'm probably just going to use this system to replace one of my DIY systems with yeast and sugar. So I'll just be switching that out and I'll keep the diffuser that I'm using right now. What is this? So when I was doing my research, I found out about this. So this is a sort of like a filter. So this will go underneath the regulator, like so. And this basically cleans the CO2 gas. So when we add the dry ingredients and the water, it's going to form a chemical reaction. It's going to start foaming up a little bit. It's going to be bubbling. And I think this is just to make sure that we don't have any water going into the regulator, because that would of course damage the regulator. So like we have like a small filter. Okay, here we have some spare parts. So we have an extra fitting for the bubble counter. There are a few O-rings, and then here we have something interesting. It took me a little while to figure out what this is, but basically inside this filter, I don't know if you can hear that, but we have these. So these are like the replacement filtration media. I don't know how to call it. Spare parts. What else do we have? We have some suction cups and a non-return valve. We have some clear CO2 tubing, that's nice. And then we have the base. So this is the base for the reactor. So it stands stable on the ground and it cannot tip over and damage anything. And lastly, you have these things. I don't know the English word for it. But basically you just put them inside and then we can drop all those dry ingredients in there. Alright, so that's everything that's in the box. So one thing that's not in the box is the actual ingredients to make our CO2. Those ingredients, they are sold separately in a box. I think this is a refill for 3 times, so we can make 3 times a recipe for CO2. So let's open these up as well. They just call it component A and component B. They don't actually call it citric acid and baking soda, although I'm pretty sure that that is what it is. Component A, I think this is citric acid. Component A, component A. So 3 bags of component A. And here we have component B. And this feels like baking soda. So we have 3 bags of that as well. So I have no idea how many days of CO2 we're going to get from one recipe. I'm very curious to test this out. But in this box we have basically three recipes, so we can fill it up once and then refill it 2 times more after that. Okay, so I'm going to take a few minutes and read through the manual. I already did my research, but I want to make sure I don't forget anything and I'm doing everything right. So I'll be back with you guys in a few minutes. Okay, seems pretty straightforward. The only thing I was wondering is the tools that they gave you inside the box. The small screwdriver. So this one is for the regulator. If you ever want to replace the O-ring that is inside the needle valve, we'll need this small screwdriver. So I'm just going to keep this somewhere. And I think they call this an Allen wrench. I found it out from the manual, of course. This one is to replace the quick fit connector for the bubble counter. So again, we don't need this right now. So I think we can just put the whole thing together. So let's start by putting the filter. You have to put that underneath the regulator. And there's a small seal underneath the regulator, so we need to remove that. like so. And then the filter just screws right, just like that. Filter is in place, and I think now we're basically ready to add our ingredients to the canister and start making some CO2. Okay, so we're ready to make some CO2. We have component A, component B, and 300 milliliters of water. In the packaging we had the paper funnels. Now, I'm not going to use those because I know myself, I'm a little bit clumsy. So I got my own funnel that fits perfectly on top of the canister. So let's do this. So we have component A and component B, and it doesn't really matter which one you pour in first. So let's just start with component A. Alright, component A is in. They come in these bags, 200 grams exactly, so you don't need to measure anything yourself. So component A is the citric acid. Let's start with component B. Again, 200 grams. Okay, both components are now inside. First thing we need to do is we need to check if there's nothing inside the thread of the canister, because if there will be some residue left inside the thread and we screw on the regulator, that we might cause a leak or something, so we don't want that. So it's all clean. Alright, so now the fun part, we need to add the water. It's a little bit, I'm a little bit nervous about this, because once we start adding the water, the chemical reaction is going to start straight away. So we need to be quick about it. We need to really quickly add the water and then really quickly add a screw on the regulator so we seal everything. Okay, so in the manual they advise to keep the canister at a 45-degree angle. So I think I'm actually going to remove this for now. Keep it at a 45-degree angle, then pour in the water and then screw on the regulator. So here goes nothing. You can already hear a little bit of sizzling. Okay, done. Okay, so that actually wasn't too bad. I expected a lot of sizzling if I would screw on the regulator, but it was nothing. I do hear a lot of sizzling right now as we go. And also the bottle is getting colder because the chemical reaction is producing a lot of cold, so the stainless steel canister is going to be very cold. It's completely normal. Okay, so let's just continue with setting up the entire system. So first let's install the bubble counter. This just slides into the quick fit. If you press it down, you can't pull it back out anymore unless you push down this ring. It's just like that. So that's very simple. Then our solenoid. This connects to the power plug. So that's done. Let's add some water to the bubble counter. So if we screw the top off. Pour a little bit of water. That's enough. Alright, so now we can see our bubbles. Okay, next we can install the clear CO2 tubing. I think in the box there was about, I think this is about 2 meters worth of tubing, so that's plenty. If we just screw the small cap off now. Put that through our tubing, like so, and push it back on. Okay. The CO2 tubing is quite stiff, so you need to use quite a lot of pressure. That's okay. Alright, so basically we're done now. Oh wait, we still need to do the check valve. Okay, so the only thing left to do is to install our check valve. It's very easy, but the CO2 tubing that is provided in the box is quite tough. So what I like to do is actually drop it in some very hot water. This is almost boiling water. So keep it in there for a few seconds. And this will just soften it up. And then we should be able to slide it on. Just like that. Alright, that's it. Now we're done. Okay, so we still have very little pressure, but I thought let's just check, see if it works already. So I plugged it in. The red light is on, so it's working. Let's open the needle valve. Yes. There we go. We have CO2. Right, let's close back up. And let's just attach the whole system to one of the aquascapes. Okay, so I think our new CO2 generator will be a perfect fit for this little tank right here. This is the 20 liter nano aquascape. Right now it's still running DIY CO2 with yeast and sugar. So the very simple system that I was talking about earlier. So it's receiving CO2 24/7 right now, which of course is a bit of a waste. So I think our new generator will be a perfect upgrade for this little tank. So I'm just going to leave the CO2 diffuser, I'm just going to leave it in, and I'll just swap out the two systems. Alright, done. New system is in place. Out with the old and in with the new. Pressure is still quite low, but we have about a bubble per second or so. And we have CO2. Alright, that's the first look slash unboxing slash installation of the CO2 reactor set from Colombo. Very curious to see how many days of CO2 we will get out of this system. One thing we haven't talked about yet, by the way, is the price. So this system costs new about 200 euros, which is about $240. And the refills are 5 euros each. So that's about $6. $6 for a refill. So yeah, of course we have to see how many days of CO2 we'll get out of this. I'll just keep posting regular updates on Instagram and the YouTube community tab. And I think once the first batch of CO2 will run out, we will do an update, sort of like review video, something like that. If you guys have any more questions about the CO2 reactor set, just drop your questions in the comments. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you found this video helpful, give that video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.